Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me, as always, is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband. What's up, Omar?
Not much. How are you?
I'm like, what can I ask that isn't, how are you? So we asked, what's up?
What's up? Not much. I do want to say, actually, for me personally, I was just overwhelmed with lots of gratitude this past week. So many people commenting and, just reaching out on our pregnancy post. So I was felt very loved. So that's kind of what's up. Just feeling very loved. And obviously with family and everything, it's been so great to just have so many people be part of this journey with us. So that's kind of what I have to share. Yeah. What's up with you?
It's a fun new journey. I am definitely feeling like I feel more pregnant this week. I feel
what do you
a little
mean
more
by that?
fatigue.
Oh, fatigue.
Like
okay.
it's hitting for sure. We moved, we used to record podcasts in the mornings, moved it to the afternoons. So I'm like, I feel like that's more reliable. Yeah. I feel like I feel a little more upbeat and excited to record. I feel like life is going well, but learning how to navigate the ins and outs of running a business when you can't always rely on your energy.
Yeah.
I know I was telling you earlier today, it's kind of like that feeling of the last couple of days before your period when you just have that dip in energy and you're like, okay, like if I'm not as productive these couple of days, it's fine. Cause I know, once my period comes, cycle changes, I'll feel good. You kind of have that feeling, except you're like, I don't know when I'll feel good. You just don't really know. So just taking it one day at a time.
Yeah. That's all you can do.
Yeah. But on this episode, so I actually wanted to talk a little bit about something we were just talking about earlier today.
What's that?
About building a house.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now new stage of life, we're trying to make adult decisions, like where are we going to live when we have a baby? And we're trying to decide, if we're going to want to buy a house at some point, if we're, currently the house we live in, we rent, and we're just trying to decide if or when we'll buy. And we're talking to our financial advisor because, like I say with everything, outsource everything in your life. I do not like to make any decisions for myself. So I have advisors, coaches, all the things in all areas of life. And so very important for this area of life, trying to make these kinds of big financial decisions. And we were talking to him, and he had mentioned before how he had built his home. And so we were like, we should ask him, what does it actually go into building a home? Like there's some lots for sale by us. They're pretty cheap. Like maybe that would be an option to just buy a lot and build the house we want. And so we were asking him about that, getting kind of the inside scoop. And spoiler alert there, I don't think that would be an option we would go with, but.
Well, and I think this kind of ties back to what we're going to talk about. It takes a long time to do that, right?
There's just a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, it's like a 1 or 2 year process. Plus, obviously you and I would probably have to put in a lot of work just on the work that goes into it. But yeah, it's the
bigger
process.
part of it is, at least from his perspective, what he was talking about is I guess it's hard to get your home appraised after you build it actually match the true value of what you've built. So unless you're planning on it really being a forever home where you're not worried about what the resale value would be, it's not always going to be the greatest idea because this would be more of a starter home anyway. Yeah. But speaking of, if I was thinking about then when it came to this episode, I'm like, if I were to build a house, if I were okay, I have free reign to build my dream home, I hire a builder, I hire a construction company, and I tell them exactly what I want, and they're like, yes, absolutely, we can build that for you. But here's the deal. It's going to take 3 months to lay the foundation. We got to, we have the lot. We got to really make sure that the ground is ready to build up from. We got to really make sure the foundation is exactly how we need it to be. Omar's laughing at me because he's you don't know anything about it.
Neither do I. And that's why I'm like, all right, this is really going to show how much we know about building a home.
Someone who listens to this knows what actually goes into this, and they're like, that is not actually
you guys are a bunch
works.
of idiots. Yeah.
But this is theoretical. Just imagine if they're telling me this of, okay, this is what it's going to take. We're going to have to spend this amount of time, let's say 3 months, building the foundation, getting it ready to actually then put up the walls, build up, and actually start to create this dream home that you've designed. We can't actually just throw down the dream home. We got to prep the land. We got to lay the foundation. We got to do all that prep work, right? If they told me that, and then I'm like, no, I need you to do that actually in 3 days, not 3 months. They would be like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. That's the way it works. If I want to have the dream home, you got to have the solid foundation. That would be silly to try and skip that part. It would be silly to try and rush that piece just because I am eager to have the final result of this beautiful house and just because I have excitement around having this beautiful home. That would feel really, really stupid to try and rush it. this is a lot like what it comes to when it comes to our bodies. And I see this all the time. I hear it often when maybe I'm having a consultation with somebody and, we talk about kind of like their goals, what they want to happen and kind of what they're currently dealing with. And maybe I lay out a projected timeline. Maybe we talk about if like, we're going to have to spend some time here really working on some foundational pieces before we can really get to the really exciting, fun stuff, right? We can't jump to putting up the walls of the house. We can't jump to, working on losing weight. We can't jump to working on building muscle. We can't jump to, having like the perfect balanced cycles and no stomach issues and all that stuff that we want unless we have a solid foundation underneath, right? And it takes time, it takes patience to build the foundation. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit today is how, if we want to build your dream body, just like we want to build the dream house, we have to make sure that the foundation is strong. So let's chat about what is the foundation? What does that look like? Why does it matter? And how, this is the thing I want to make sure you guys take away from this. How do you actually know if your body is ready for you to move on to that next step, for you to, build up, put the walls up, right? Start decorating the house. So let's think about, back when I very first started my fitness journey, I was the impatient person. This was also me in my early 20s, and I was just very like, I need it right now, right? This is like, we grew up in Amazon culture of everything should be delivered right away. And I would tell my coach, just give me the plan. I'm going to follow it. Like, I'm super motivated. I follow things. Just, tell me exactly what to do. And I can get there as fast as possible. I can get there faster than your other clients, right? I wanted the dream body fast. And the reality is, didn't work that way. I remember with my very first coach, she was the first one who taught me about, really, I guess this was technically my second coach, my first good coach, who I would qualify as my first coach. She was the first one to teach me about the idea of reverse dieting. And for me, that was a big foundation building period that I wasn't necessarily prepared for because I thought, I'm going to go straight into cutting weight, right into a calorie deficit, right into losing weight. My body wasn't ready for that. So if you maybe relate to that story, maybe you've been that client before, or maybe you're just kind of there now where you're just like, I'm listening to this podcast because of the fact that I want to find out, how do I get the dream body? I want to get there right now. And maybe you're also here because you're also the person who you've been stuck in cycles of this. You've lost weight, you've gained it back, you fix your digestion only for it to flare back up again. Like, you might be stuck in that cycle, and it's not because you have failed. It's not because your body failed. It's not because your body isn't capable. It might just be that you did not fully set the foundation before you started to actually put in that next layer and build that next piece in. And that is why it's so, so important. That's why we start with this at Vital Spark.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too. And people aren't going to like this, but think of it like this, right? If you're just honest with yourself and you go back and you're like, okay, well, what have my 20s been looking like? What have my 30s been looking like? And what have the different approaches actually done for me? Sure, they've given the short-term quick fixes, but a year later, 6 months later, 2 years later, 5 years later, we're still stuck in this same cycle. Then it's like, okay, well, do we want to keep doing the same things that we have been doing? Or do we actually want to do something different? And I think it starts with that honesty first and foremost, because kind of what you were saying before, you're like, I was the client that was like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it faster than other clients. Mm-hmm. But that, unfortunately, and myself included, that leads to unhealthy relationships with food. That leads to burnout. That leads to you doing more harm than good. So I think it starts there, and it's like, okay, I'm, 30 now, I'm 35, however old you are out there. And you're like, well, another year is going to come and go. And so what's, a couple of months of a difference going to do? Or again, if you think about it from the long-term perspective, I'm like, I'd rather do that. And sure, that's not the sexy thing, but unfortunately, that's just the reality of things.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest pieces is when you may be surrounded by friends or family members who are doing the quick fix thing, and you're like, but it seems to be working for them. They seem to be
that's just
quickly fixing.
Thing too,
It's like they, here they're rapidly losing weight. It's like you're starting to get in your head over like, I understand that I should go the slow and steady route. I understand that's better, but yet here I'm looking at this person, I'm feeling those feelings of like a little bit of jealousy, a little bit of like, I want what she has. I'm telling you, just be patient. Wait it out. there's going to be a point where your friend or your family member who's doing the quick fix now and seems to be getting the fast results now, they're going to be back where they started and or in a worse spot, turning to you, looking to you, asking you, how did you get to where you are? Because you did it at that slow and steady pace that was maybe imperceptible to them. They didn't even notice until one day they look up and they're like, crap, here I am back where I started again. What new quick fix am I going to do now? And they're looking at you and they're like, wow, you seem really healthy. You seem like you've lost weight. Like you seem happier. You like things seem so much better for you. I didn't even notice. What have you been doing? Oh my gosh, tell me more, right? Be the example.
And then if I'm going to tie it back again to what you just started the podcast with, the financial advisor and you having mentors and advisors that have done the things that you want to do. Well, again, and it makes logical sense in that way, right? So it's like, okay, well, if you've built the house, if you've had the success financially, I'm like, well, then I'm going to listen to you. And so going back to the family situation, it's like, well, if they haven't done the things that you want to do, then why would you listen to them?
Yeah, that's a little bit of the harsh reality. Yeah. I know that's easier said than done. Sometimes you have
This is the dad brain in me kicking in.
Sure. But let's talk about like, what does this actually look like in practice? I think this is where a lot of programs really skip the important work, and we do not skip that work at Vital Spark. We are all about helping you, not build the shoddy, really fastly built home that just blows down in a storm. We're going to build the home that actually lasts you. We're going to build you the home that you never have to move out of, right? And that is the body that is going to last you for the rest of your life and not have you just every single year revert back to, okay, what new program am I going to do now, right? So first thing that we like to do with our clients is what we call a metabolic assessment. So when a new client joins us, we're not just going to jump into a calorie deficit. In fact, sometimes this is where every once in a while I'll get a client that I'm like, I have to talk off the ledge a little bit because they're like, I need to move fast. It's, day 3 and I'm not seeing results yet. And it's like, hey, we're laying the foundation here. Like, stick with me here and we're going to get there. But we have to first start actually with assessing where we're at. And I know that's not the exciting part. It's like, hey, how are we doing an assessment? I want results. It's 3 days in. Give me the results, not give me an assessment. But in that first week, we want to actually look at how their body is functioning. We want to look at what their nutrition looks like now. We want to look at in practice, not just them, reporting from memory of what they've eaten in the past. We want to actually look at, okay, when you're not changing anything in this first week, what are you eating? What are you reaching for? About how much is that? Let's just kind of build some awareness around that and see where you're currently at, while also looking at the other data we've assessed as far as if labs have come back, looking at labs, looking at biofeedback, looking at symptom scores. This is where I like to look at something that I like to abbreviate to SHREDS. SHREDS stands for sleep, hunger, recovery, energy, digestion, and stress. This is a really great acronym to remember what are some of the biofeedback markers we need to be assessing and seeing where you're at with. If those things are out of balance, if your SHREDS are out of balance, that is your body's red flag. That is your body's check engine light. That's your body saying like, hey, I'm not ready for any more stress right now. We need to build a foundation here. My foundation is shoddy. My foundation is not in a good spot. And the thing is, going into a calorie deficit, going into an intense protocol, if we're talking about functional health here, diving into something like a flush, if we jump into that too fast without a strong foundation, it can be very stressful in the body. If instead we have a strong foundation and then we layer that in, we can see really great results. So that's why we focus first on actually assessing where those things are at and working on stabilizing those initial systems, really focusing on quality sleep, steady hunger cues, proper recovery, balanced energy, regular digestion. Like, yes, you should be having a bowel movement every single day, a good bowel movement, at least one, feeling like you're fully emptying. And we also need to have manageable stress. So we got to focus on those things first, because that's what's going to make your metabolism resilient. What's going to make the walls on the house actually stay up, not just be put up, right?
And I think it also, correct me if I'm wrong, Ness, but that's also builds the right foundation so that you can add more things to your plate, like a flush protocol, like a gut healing protocol, because if you're in the middle of, a busy season of life, and now all of a sudden we're like, well, not only are we going to throw nutrition at you, we're also going to throw gut healing protocols and flush protocols, you're going to be overwhelmed quite easily. So it's like, hey, we've got to learn to crawl before you run, right? Or learn to crawl before you walk. So that we can build that strong, solid foundation, but most importantly, so that we can get to those long-term sustainable results.
Yeah, 100%. Then we really need to also start looking at our behavior and looking at our mindset. So this is something we start to really layer in as we're working on those other pieces of the metabolism and the shreds like we talked about there. We also, this is a huge part of the foundation, is actually looking at behavior change, actually looking at mindset. And I'm telling you, myself included, I have never met anybody who does not need this work. It's not a, do you need this work or not? It's just, to what extent do you need this work? How much of this work maybe have you already done coming into working together that we can build upon? Or is this completely new to you? And we're going to really start building from the foundations when it comes to mindset work. But we're going to look at daily habits. We're going to look at, like, are you skipping meals? I hear often all the time, I'm just like, I don't have time to eat breakfast. I'm not hungry in the morning. We got to start there. We got to work on that. That's stressful in the body. We got to look at your relationship to caffeine, how much caffeine you're drinking, when are you reaching for it? We got to look at your training routines in your relationship to exercise. We got to look at, how you view food. Are you looking at food as punishment? Are you looking at food as fuel? Are you looking at like, oh my gosh, I ate all these calories, that's bad? Or are you looking at like, okay, I ate all these calories and that's just a neutral thing. Calories are a measure of energy. How are we actually talking to ourselves about these things? We got to build awareness around that and start to rewire how we think, how we approach these things. And that right there is going to be a huge piece of the puzzle as we get into that deeper work beyond the foundations. And I think the other part here I just want to mention around the foundations before we get into, what comes after building that foundation is the patience part of this. This is truly like the foundations can feel really slow. It can feel like you're not having these dramatic changes yet. And some people can stress over that of like, man, I just, maybe I'm investing in myself for the first time and I'm seeing it as like every single day I need to see like X amount of return, and working on foundations to me doesn't feel like as much of a return. Maybe it's I don't know what, different what ways can create this kind of impatience, but I hear it all the time where the clients or even just people who reach out to me in general that are like, man, I am getting married next month. I got to lose 30 pounds. It's like, we got to be patient. We got to work in the foundations. It's not going to put you in a good space going into that head.
And here's a good analogy too. I think you mentioned the house analogy, but it's like, okay, it's kind of like, again, your body, now you're not, 10, 15, like you're not starting, this isn't a new build. This is a remodel basically, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like coming into a remodel, and now you're like, yeah, so we were going to remodel your living room. But as we started to, change the lighting, we noticed that the wires are now rotted. So now we got to change all the insulation in the roof. And now we got to change XYZ things. So it's like, as you start to dive into the changes, if something isn't working, like your relationship with food, or like you're struggling with constipation or bloat or hormones, I'm like, well, then we got to take a little bit of time to work on every single one of these areas so that when all the pieces come together, they actually do work. Because again, to your point, Ness, yeah, this is an investment into yourself and you want to get the most results. But at times, in order to get the results, we got to work and take pauses. And also, to your point, as far as patience, I think another thing that comes along is grace, because we're, mentioning all these things like it's a checklist, but you're also a person and you have things where maybe you're not 100% on track, and that's okay. And so it's ebbs and flows, balances too, that I think people forget.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we talked about the foundation. What happens after the foundations? Now we can actually start to really build up the walls. If we're thinking about building this dream home or building this dream body, that's where we can get into the building stages. And I want to clarify what these stages are, because I think a lot of people confuse thinking that some of these are the first step. This is not the first step. So when we talk about building the metabolism, foundation building is the first step to building the metabolism, because we can't jump right into, necessarily jacking your calories way up to feed your metabolism, or adding in supplements to fuel your metabolism, things like that, if you do not have those basics in place. Otherwise, it can be, maybe a waste of money on supplements, or it could be, again, stressful in the body, increasing our calories too fast. That's where, for a lot of clients, we might move them into a reset phase after we do a foundation.
Can you talk
phase.
a little bit about our 3 phases and kind of where we start, why we move on from one phase to another and like what that looks like for our client journeys?
Yeah, so it can vary per client, but typically we have about 5 phases in our roadmap, and that first phase is the foundations phase. But from the foundations phase, then we move into the reset phase, and that's where we're doing a lot of metabolic reset. We're, for some clients, working on increasing their calorie intake using a more functional reverse diet, so kind of using reverse dieting methods, but adding in more functional medicine type of principles. We'll typically, for many clients, use a flush within that reset phase to really work on clearing out the liver, really get the thyroid in a good spot, make sure the adrenals are supported, like really work on some of those foundational actual organ systems of the metabolism. So again, it's still kind of a little bit of foundations, but in a deeper way. Then for a lot of clients, we'll move into what we call the restore phase. And that's where we're really doing some of that deeper restoration in the body. So we're diving into healing hormones, healing the gut. For a lot of clients, we may have had a GI map or a Dutch test by this point, and we're now getting really specific with their results, going off of, okay, what specifically do we need to tweak and adjust with our gut, with our hormones, get everything in a really good spot. This is truly, I think, one of the pieces where we see some of the most groundbreaking results in, some of the most dramatic changes in symptoms. And again, it's not to say those other 2 phases, you might see a lot of progress. It's very normal for a lot of our clients to start noticing, feeling, maybe even seeing changes in the first, 6 to 8 weeks when they might still be in foundations or maybe just starting to move into reset. But the reality is the latter phases, like as we're starting to slowly build the walls up, that's where you really see the full picture coming into place. So it's like, we kind of laid that foundation in the foundations phase. We're putting the walls up in the reset phase. We're starting to maybe add more, like appliances, like add like some really bigger pieces in the home.
Oh, this is the house analogy. I was like, what do you mean appliances? Okay, yeah.
In the restore phase, now we're like adding in, putting in the refrigerator and adding like the nice granite countertops and like those like bigger pieces.
Touches.
Yeah, like a little bit more finishing touches. And then now finally we get into that refine phase, is now where we actually fine tune body composition. So for most clients, we've seen some body composition changes already, but this is where the focus becomes body composition, which is a goal for many people, whether it's adding muscle or losing weight, maybe a mix of both, but that's where we really want to fine tune that. That is like putting up the decorations on the walls, picking out the perfect paint color, adding that perfect, comfortable couch that you've always wanted, like those little things that have been on the Pinterest board. The foundation is not on your Pinterest board, but the color of your walls and the type of couch you want, maybe that's on your Pinterest board. Same thing with your body. What we do in the foundations phase is probably not what you're like, man, I really want to do these things, but it has to happen in order for you to get to the exciting things like the full body change. So every phase really does have its place, but
so what is it again? So it's foundations, reset, restore, refine.
Yeah, and then we do have another phase after that, but that's where we get into the flourish phase. And that's where we actually we're really big on education, really teaching our clients how to not just get results, but maintain results, how to really be their own coach, how to, continue this long term. But it's really just the quality of your foundation is going to determine the quality of those phases and how well those things go. So we cannot rush the foundation. Just like if I'm trying to build a dream home and they tell me it's going to take 3 months to build the foundation, I can't rush them in that process or else I'm going to get a shoddy home. So I want to make sure I hit on this before we close out here. How to know when you're ready to move out of the foundation phase. How to know when you're ready to build up. This is a little bit of a quick self-check that anybody can do if they're working on these things on their own. And if you're thinking about, okay, we talked about shreds, right? Sleep, hunger, recovery, energy, digestion, and stress, right? So we're thinking about maybe scoring where those are at and trying to increase our scores in those areas. Think about whether or not you have a coach. Think about if you did have a coach. Ask, if my coach looked at my shreds, if my coach scored those things, would they say that like, I am thriving, I am in a great spot, all of those are really, really solid, my body could probably handle some stress from here, right? If that in a good spot there, you're probably good. You're definitely good to move on from foundations. Now, if your coach, hypothetical or real, were to look at your shreds and say, looks like we haven't really made any movement here. Looks like we're really struggling in some areas or in all these areas. That's probably a sign that we need to actually spend more time here. We need to hold at eating enough food. We need to make sure that we are cleaning up our habits. We need to make sure that we are tightening up the structure of how we spend our time and how we, listen to our bodies, how we manage our mind, like all the little pieces that go into our shreds. We need to think about that. That is a really good just check in place, scoring those factors there and seeing, am I actually moving the needle on them when I'm actually actively focusing on those areas? I truly just want to beat the dead horse here. Like if you take time to build the foundation first, I promise you everything else changes. I see clients get results in the foundation phase. I don't want to create that expectation, but I see it. I do see it where clients will be like, wow, I've already dropped so much inflammation. I'm already seeing the scale drop. These things make a big difference.
Can we talk about too, like the internal symptoms too, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
I feel so much more energized. I'm going to the bathroom. And I know, again, that's not like the stuff that everybody's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put that on my Pinterest board, if people even use Pinterest these days. But it's, to your point, that's the solid foundation that allows us to either move forward or continue down the rabbit hole of figuring out the true root cause of what's preventing your body from losing the stubborn body weight or whatever that might look like, whatever your goals are for you.
And it really is the differentiator in creating something that's actually sustainable and actually going to last. So it's not just about getting the results, but whether or not those results are still there a year from now or not. Because you don't want to just feel better now just to end up a year from now back in the same place. This is the patience required to make sure that you have the foundational pieces that make a body, make a habits, a lifestyle really stable enough to carry through every season of life, right? So if you have been feeling just really frustrated by maybe slow progress, maybe feeling like you are failing, maybe feeling like you're just ending up back in the same spot over and over again, maybe it's that you are, you're still pouring the concrete. You've been in the foundations forever. You're still doing that. I want you to know that's okay, because once it sets, it will last. Once that concrete sets, you have a solid foundation without any cracks in it, you are going to be in a great spot from there. This is the work we have to do with our health. So be patient, keep laying each habit, like brick by brick, and just really visualize that you are building a house that is going to last, that is going to weather any storm. It's not going to just crumble when the storm comes through. So I hope that this maybe gave you a new perspective. Maybe you gave you a shift of inspiration or motivation to really just focus on those foundational pieces. And if it did, let me know. Shoot me a message on Instagram. Maybe take a screenshot of this, share it on your stories. Maybe just send this to a friend. Maybe just share this with somebody else who needs to hear it. But anything else?
No, I think, if you guys don't mind, and we don't ask for a lot, but I will ask this time, please share it. But also give us a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Play, wherever you're listening to this, because that is going to help the algorithm push our information forward to other people that might be in the same boat as you, or that might also be struggling with these things. So please, please, please do us a favor. Share, like, review, rate it. 5 stars is great. I'll take 5 stars. But yeah, please help us and do us the favor of spreading the good info out there.
Yeah, I love it. All right, guys, we'll be back next week with another great episode.
Bye, everybody.